family. And even whilst Monet was completing the painting, his son Jean was born. And because of the estrangement from his family, because of the sickness of his child, because of the fact his art wasn't being recognized, a year later he tried to commit suicide.
Fortunately, the attempt to drown himself in the River Seine failed, and Camille nursed him back to health, as well as their young son, prompting Monet to write to a friend proclaiming, "I'm surrounded by everything I love." Camille proved an inspiring muse for Monet's eye as well as his heart, and she was the model for each of the women seen in this painting, a work submitted by Monet for the Salon in 1867, but rejected. He began the large canvas out of doors and actually dug a trench to put it in so that he could work on the upper areas in situ, but he still had to finish the work in his studio. The real breakthrough came soon enough, though, when Monet reduced his scale, if not his ambition, teamed up with his friend Renoir and headed for the river.
In the summer of 1869, Monet hired a little place in a hamlet called Saint-Michel near Bougival on the banks of the River Seine, in a place that became known as the cradle of Impressionism. And here, together with his friend and fellow painter Renoir, they forged or began to forge a style that later challenged all the established conventions of painting. And this is one of those examples. It's called Bathers at La Grenouillère, and La Grenouillère was a wonderful floating cafe. You could hire boats, you could swim in the Seine itself. And here is an image of Parisians on a day trip, relaxing in and by the river. It's an image of contemporary life. Its mood is calm, and the sensations of light, almost the sounds of people splashing in the water, and maybe the music from the cafe can be heard if you look hard enough. But ultimately, what you notice most of all is the way that paint is applied. Brushstrokes are not disguised, and the paint is applied, sometimes thinly, sometimes thickly. Light, real light, catches the surface of the painting itself, and the painting is all about surface. And the areas of paint are not mixed on the palette, they're not mixed on the canvas. They're actually mixed in the eye of the beholder, and it's a dynamic sensation, rather like looking at water. Your eyes rarely can remain still as you're drawn up the banks of the Seine or off to the left where light flickers on the trees and on the bark. It's an image that, now looking at it, seems calm and contemplative. It's almost as if you're sinking into sunbathing on a hot afternoon, and it's difficult to imagine just how radical this painting was considered. But Monet and Renoir set up their canvases outside. They're actually locating themselves, and us, the viewer, on La Grenouillère, on the floating cafe. And the whole work is painted out of doors. Now, previously, for the last 4 or 5 centuries, artists, academic artists, had sketched out of doors but then taken their work into the studio to finish. Here, Monet blurs the distinction between the two, and the sketch becomes the finished work, and the work itself is finished out of doors. And it's that, and the way that paint is applied to capture this fleeting, spontaneous moment, that paves the way for the Impressionist revolution.
When you go outside to paint, Monet said, try to forget what objects you have in front of you. A tree, a field. Just think, here's a little square of blue, there an oblong of pink, here a streak of yellow, and paint it just as it looks to you, the exact colour and shape, until it gives your own naive impression of the scene. It was a method of painting which didn't find favour with the establishment, though, who considered it primitive and vulgar. But Monet stopped trying to pander to the academic values of the Salon and abandoned large